Tennessee football picked up another commit, and this time it's on the offensive side. A weapon for Nico Iamaleava in the class of 2023. Who is it, and what about his game? We'll tell you all about it on a Friday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good Friday, everybody, and welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, and thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch on YouTube. We're available 5 days a week, weekday mornings when you wake up, wherever you find your podcast. I'm Eric Kane. You can find this podcast on Twitter at Locked On Vols and at _Kaner. And I do radio in Knoxville, Tennessee at 99.1 The Sports Animal. That's a flagship station for the University of Tennessee. I also write for the rival site covering Tennessee. That is at volquest.com. All right, so Tennessee gets a new commit. We'll tell you about that. How many games are Tennessee going to be underdogs in, according to Phil Steele? We'll tell you that. We'll hear from Phil Steele on an interview he had with Josh and Swain at 99.1 The Sports Animal earlier this week. And then we'll get back into our starter spotlight, staying at linebacker, and we'll talk Aaron Beasley here today. All that and more coming up on a Friday show. But nonetheless, Tennessee gets another commit for the class of 2023. It's 15th commit of the class, and it's sixth on the offensive side of the football. It's second wide receiver, or it's second running back, however you want to characterize it. A 6'1", 220-pound athlete in Cam Seldon. Cam Seldon is from Heupel, Virginia, and he is a really, really talented player. Just like I said, he's a weapon, okay? So he's a guy that plays both offensively and defensively for Northumberland High School in Virginia. He plays just about every position on the field. I mean, we're talking wide receiver, running back, wildcat quarterback, tight end, up back. On defense, he plays safety, he plays corner, he can rush the edge or rush the passer off the edge. He can play a little linebacker. I mean, again, he is when you check the tape, he is a man amongst boys at that prep level in Virginia. Again, 6'1", 220. He can run about a 4.4 40. So this is a really, really nice athlete for the University of Tennessee. This is a scouting report when I spoke with Aaron Lewis, the head coach of Northumberland. I think that's how you pronounce it, Northumberland. He's the head football coach, Aaron Lewis. This is what he had to say about Cam Seldon when I spoke with him just the other day. Quote, Cam Seldon is a humble, hardworking kid. He's a coach's dream to have at any program you want. He's so humble and not an ego-driven kid. He's got a team-first attitude and is always caring about his teammates. He's a great leader and has great intangibles. He's a better person than he is athlete, and that's saying something. It's a blessing to be able to coach someone with that physique and someone who is that big and strong, but also who is so fast. He can make a play at any time of the game. He's a great route runner, has great hands. You can call on him. You can have him in the backfield running the ball as well. He's definitely another Deebo Samuel because he's so versatile in his game. He can be on the defensive side of the football as well, making plays, interceptions, and tackles. He can return kicks on special teams. Having a guy like that can do so many things is great for your program. It's also great for the kids to see that level of competition and greatness every single day in practice. They are watching it on the field and in the weight room. The kids have been sticking with it, seeing how he does it and following his lead. That's the leadership I'm talking about. His teammates see what it takes to be great, and they're following in line right behind him to do just that. Again, that is Aaron Lewis, Northumberland's head football coach, head coach of Cam Seldon, Tennessee's 15th commit on the for the class of 2023. So if you just look at his player card, again, really, really nice player. He is a 4-star. He's characterized by Rivals as the 20th ranked athlete in the class. He has a Rivals rating of 5.8. He is the 3rd ranked player in the state of Virginia. And of course, if you look at On3, 247, Rivals, ESPN, whatever the publication you look at, they'll have everybody rated a little bit different, but he is a 4-star pretty much across the book. And he's a guy that, again, you watch his tape and it's very, very impressive. And this is the guy that Tennessee was in on from a while ago, right? So they turned the pressure up on him at the first of the new year in January when his recruiting really, really kind of took off. Got him to campus a couple of times for a junior day, got him in to watch a spring practice, and then was able to get him back in for an official visit the second to last weekend of June. Now, Tennessee survived a official visit weekend, the final weekend of June, when he went to Penn State. And that's really who Tennessee beat out in this recruitment. Tennessee won out over Penn State, and Maryland came in third there. But he's a guy that, when you watch the tape, such a unique blend of size and speed. He's, like I said, he runs about a 4.44. He's got long strides to get past the second and third levels of the defense. Once he's in the open field, it's game over. No one's going to catch him, all right? Simple go routes, post routes, they can be completed at any moment when he's out there wide. He's also used to get the ball in short spaces. He's got good hands, good recognition, getting the ball in both bubble and tunnel screens. Shows good vision and finding the lane, and patient when running behind his blockers. A really good route runner, but that can also be refined at the next level, as it always will be. When you put him in the backfield, either a wildcat quarterback or at a running back, he wins the edge on stretch or toss plays. Yeah, he also knows when to cut it back and to find a seam. At 220 pounds, he's not afraid to get the 1 yard needed to move the sticks. Even though the receiver is his natural position, Seldon is physical when running through the hole. And again, on defense, which he won't play at the next level, but on defense, he's skillful off the edge, showing speed to race down the quarterback. He's good in coverage and physical with receivers. Tennessee's new athlete also shows great ball skills as a returner and punt returning, finding a seam quickly and showing good feet when maneuvering around those punt returns, and good vision on kick returns. So he's a guy that is all over the football field, of course, but also is a standout on the track and field team. But this is big for Tennessee because Tennessee, again, as we spoke on yesterday's show, since the commitment of Nico Iamaleava, the 5-star quarterback, back in March, Tennessee's only had one offensive pledge to join the boat, to join the race, right? And that was Will Stallings, a 3-star running back from Las Vegas. This is now what I believe will kind of start a trend of some offensive players, hopefully some offensive tackles. We'll see if Nathan Laycock can get in the mix here in the next couple of days. We'll see. But this is a weapon for Nico. He's a guy that, the reference point is Deebo Samuel. The comparison is Deebo Samuel. Now, he will master one position at Tennessee before they start mixing him around a little bit. But now I think he will start out likely at receiver. But this gives you an insurance policy at running back. The running back board is kind of all over the place right now. There were a couple of really nice targets at running back that Tennessee was in on a little bit, but they kind of went elsewhere, right? And some of the other guys that Tennessee was in on, they, after reevaluating, decided not to bring them on campus. And so there will be a running back or two where their name will be mentioned later in the cycle, just like Justin Williams-Thomas last year. And we'll see who Tennessee brings in. But, this is an insurance policy. So technically you can say Tennessee has 2 running backs in the class right now, or you can say Tennessee technically has 2 wide receivers in the class. This is a guy that can do both. I think his natural position's at wide receiver. That's probably where he'll start out. But anyway, he is a weapon. And I think he's a guy that it won't take long for him to see the field once he gets on campus, whether that's in a reserve role or it's on special teams. But I think it's big for Nico Iamaleava because, again, this is the first true weapon that has joined the class kind of to help Nico. And I think there will be others that will soon follow. Of course, Ethan Davis is already here, and he will be absolutely a weapon for Nico Iamaleava, the 4-star, tight end, one of the best tight ends in the class of 2023. So Tennessee gets commit number 15, offensive player number 6, receiver number 2, or running back number 2. Just an absolutely dynamic athlete, a 4-star across the board, Cam Seldon of Heathsville, Virginia. And I think that he is going to be a really, really nice player. So with Cam now in the boat, who could be next? Well, we know that Sham Uomarov, the offensive tackle, is set to make an announcement coming up today at some point. It's going to be between Tennessee and Georgia, likely. Lucas Simmons, an offensive tackle, is going to make a decision on July the 11th, which is Monday. That's going to come down to likely between Tennessee and Florida State. You've got Jalen Smith, the linebacker from Grayson, Georgia. He's going to make a decision on July the 10th, which is Sunday, and that's going to be between Tennessee, Virginia, Maryland. Texas is in that one, and Pitt is in that one as well. I really like Tennessee in that one as well, so we'll see what happens. So the good times could continue to keep rolling for the University of Tennessee. And as I mentioned, Nathan Laycock, we'll see if he wants to join the class here in the next few days as well. I don't think that he is far off from making a decision, whether it be Tennessee or another school. So Tennessee did well. It picked up its second commits, or really its second commit of the Monday through Friday week. It's third commit overall of the week. And truly, if you want to date back all the way to last Friday, it's 4th commit. And it is a 4-star athlete by the name of Cam Seldon of Heathsville, Virginia. So good news for Tennessee. We'll see if the good times can keep on rolling this weekend. And of course, we'll have a big Monday show breaking down all those commits if they happen here on Locked On Vols. Phil Steele joined Josh and Swain on 99.1 The Sports Animal. Had a lot of good things to say about Tennessee, but one surprising thing that I want you to hear on one of Tennessee's tougher opponents, in quotation marks, because I don't think this is going to be a tough game at all. So we'll hear from that coming up here in just one moment. But first, BetOnline. It continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting needs, sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, news, including this year's NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite sports events, including MMA, UFC, boxing, and golf. Head on over to the website today or use your mobile device. Learn about all the latest trends and all the action. BetOnline.net. It is where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On Vols, your Friday show. I am your host, Eric Kane. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen, as always. Really, really do appreciate you guys. All right, Phil Steele. A lot of people read his magazine every single offseason right here in the summer months leading up to the season. He's been doing it for years, and he does a really, really great job. And he kind of goes on a media tour right before the season starts. And he joined Josh and Swain on 99.1 The Sports Animal, our good buddy Josh Ward. That was earlier this week, and had some good things to say on why he likes Tennessee. Listen to this real quick on the Tennessee Volunteers entering the season, what he thinks, Phil Steele, on Josh Heupel's club here in year number 2 of the Heupel regime.
Pretty bullish on Tennessee. In fact, I think they're going to give Georgia a run for the money in the East, and it'd be good to get Tennessee back to where they used to be years ago in that situation. When you look at Tennessee, it all starts with offense. You got to be very bullish on the offense. Hendon Hooker at the QB spot. I like the running back core led by Jamari Small. At receiver, you got to bring in a guy like Brew McCoy, who could be playing in the NFL if he really went for it, and I think he's going to be a big-time addition there. And the offensive line, solid as well. And defensively, I think we're going to see improvement. In fact, all 3 units rank in my top units. I don't think their defense is as good as the offense, but still good and better than last year. And then the special teams, I actually rate number 10 in the country. So it's an overall good team. You look at the schedule this year, Tennessee does have to play Pitt on the road, Alabama at home, and Georgia on the road. Those are probably the only 3 games I've got them an underdog in all year. So I think it's going to be a good year for Tennessee. And I thought Josh Heupel did a good job his first year as well.
Good stuff there. He said he's very bullish on Tennessee, and he only has Tennessee as underdogs in 3 games. One of those we'll get to here in just a moment, being on the road week 2 at Pitt, at home against Alabama, and then on the road against Georgia. That means, according to Phil Steele, he has Tennessee as a favorite against Kentucky, on the road against LSU. There's going to be 2, big-time matchups. And, of course, South Carolina, people are trying to pump them up a little bit. So I thought that was really interesting about how Tennessee, according to Phil Steele, only going to be an underdog in 3 games this season. So, obviously, Phil Steele really, really high on Tennessee and saying, hey, they can contend with Georgia for the SEC East. I'm not ready to go that far right now. Again, that is the reigning national champion, Georgia. I know they lost an awful lot, but still they have so much more depth compared to where Tennessee is right now. But nonetheless, it's good to hear someone from a national plot give Tennessee some praise like that. So I wanted to play that for you guys in case you didn't hear it on the radio. Here's what I really wanted to get into right now. That Tennessee-Pittsburgh game. What about Pittsburgh? What about the Panthers? They lost Jordan Addison. They lost a Heisman Trophy finalist in Kenny Pickett. They did bring in Keaton Slovis. It's week 2. It's a big game for Tennessee, and by no stretch of the imagination do I think it'll be a cakewalk. But I believe Tennessee should win that game, and it should be not with ease, but Tennessee should handle Pittsburgh. That's my belief, even though it's the first road game of the season. Not according to Phil Steele. Give this a listen on the Tennessee-Pittsburgh game and the Panthers overall, according to Phil Steele.
Yeah, and I've seen some Vegas spots actually have Tennessee favored in that game. I just personally have Pitt favored in the game because they're my number 1 surprise team in the country, and that means that they are a non-top 10 team that I think actually has a shot at making the playoff. Now, when I talked to Coach Sarduzzi this year, he really likes Keaton Slovis. And Slovis was a guy that was a Heisman contender at USC prior to last year. I think Slovis steps in and does fairly close to what Kenny Pickett did last year. They've got Abanconda, a guy that can really watch at running back, along with Vincent Davis. And then while they lose their top receiver in Jordan Addison. They do bring in a guy like Kanata Mumfield, who comes over from Akron. I thought he was very productive at Akron. I think he's going to fit in well here. In fact, Narduzzi felt good about the wide receivers, feels they're good enough to win the ACC with. You look at their offensive line, solid. I rated number 17 in the country. The best part of Pitt is that defensive line. It's always among the best defensive lines in the country, and they've got guys up front that are going to be playing in the NFL either next year or the year after that, and Baldonado, Cansey, and Alexander. I rated by number 2 defensive line in the country. So a very good defense once again. They're at home for that one. I've got Pitt a 4-point favorite in that game, but like I said, I've seen places that actually have Tennessee favored in that game.
That's interesting, to say the least. I'm not going to lie to you. Again, I think Pitt will not win double-digit wins, not win double-digit games this year. Keaton Slovis is not horrible, but he's not Kenny Pickett. You lost the best skill position player in NCAA to USC and Jordan Addison. I'm intrigued to see what Pitt's going to be this year, but I don't believe Pitt will be what it was last year. Now, granted, Tennessee should have beat Pitt last year, and it took Pitt a little while to kind of find its groove as a team that went on to win the ACC. I understand that, but it's going to be a home game for them, but we'll have to see. I think that's a game Tennessee has to win this year, in year number 2 for Josh Heupel. So we'll get into that a little bit more later on when we do our opponent previews and whatnot, but I found that really interesting. Phil Steele very, very high on Pitt. He calls them his best non-top 10 team to make the college football playoff. I don't see that whatsoever. What say you? One more thing on Phil Steele is he joined Josh and Swain on 99.1 The Sports Animal earlier this week. Ask about the Tennessee-Florida game. Second-year head coach Josh Heupel against first-year head coach Billy Napier. Here's what Phil Steele had to say about that critical, week 4 matchup, game number 4 on the schedule for the University of Tennessee at Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, I think it's going to be big for both teams. Florida's a team that, let's face it, they underachieved at the end of last year. They sort of had a lot of off-field distractions and finished just 6-7. But Billy Napier steps in. He's got 13 returning starters, and I rate him my number 2 most improved team in the country. I think Anthony Richardson, very dangerous at the quarterback spot. Look for big things out of him. And then when you look at the rest of the squad here, they have my number 21 rated offensive line. They do definitely be improved running the football with Wright Johnson and Lingard. And defensively, they got some athletes in that front 7. Guys like Dexter, Cox, and Miller up front in the front 7, all NFL caliber guys. And so Florida, I think, is going to give Tennessee a great test. In fact, I gave Tennessee the home field edge in that game. I've got the Vols a 3-point favorite, and one of the reasons that I picked Tennessee second is they get that big game at home.
Phil still thinks Florida will be the second most improved team coming out this year under first-year head coach Billy Napier. And you see a lot of these, and we didn't really touch on it this week, but CBS Sports put out its SEC coaches rankings, and Billy Napier's ahead of Josh Heupel. And I think Avalon Sports did the same thing. I think the Sporting News did the same thing. I don't understand the love fest with Billy Napier right now when he's not coached one SEC football game. I don't get it. I think he's going to be a fine coach, but I have physically seen Josh Heupel coach 12 football games at the Division I Power 5 level. 8 conference football games in the SEC. I have seen Shane Beamer do the same thing. Do I think Billy Napier will be better than those two? I don't know. Do I think Billy Napier will be fine? I think he'll be fine, but he has not coached any games in the SEC. So quite frankly, I just don't understand that reasoning. But nonetheless, Florida still has a lot of talent. I think Florida's a lot like LSU. They're going to be better than what people think that they will be. But again, Tennessee needs to win that football game. So some interesting stuff there from Phil Steele on Josh and Swain, 99.1 The Sports Animal. You can catch Josh, our good buddy Josh Warden, his new co-host, VFL Jason Swain, every single weekday, noon to 3 on The Sports Animal. Coming up, we will conclude a Friday show, a week's worth of shows, with another starter spotlight, stay the linebacker group, and we will talk Aaron Beasley coming up next here on Locked On Vols. As the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster and for free. Create a job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to create your network and beyond to the largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to bring in. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and the experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and ultimately hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every single week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions will apply. Just a couple minutes left here on this Friday edition of Locked On Vols. Welcome back into it, guys. I'm Eric Kane. I really do appreciate you guys for finishing off your work week with us here, getting your day started, or maybe your lunch break, or maybe your workout, whatever the case may be. Your go-to Tennessee Volunteers podcast to get all that information you need on a daily basis. It is Locked On Vols. So, getting near the end of our little series here called Starter Spotlight. We'll head to the secondary to begin next week. But back at linebacker, and we spoke on Jeremy Banks yesterday. Juwan Mitchell may very well step up and get back into that starting role. We'll have to see. But for safekeepings, we'll go ahead and talk about Aaron Beasley here. Aaron Beasley is a guy that pretty much was Tennessee's #2 linebacker behind Jeremy Banks all last season. He started so many different games. Juwan Mitchell started the season aside Jeremy Banks, but ultimately only lasted a couple of games before having a season-ending injury. Thus, Aaron Beasley and Solon Page were pressed into action to kind of fill the void there, opposite of Jeremy Banks. Tennessee's linebacking group as a whole was not good last year. Jeremy Banks was very much a bright spot. He looked really good. He improved as the season went on, but he didn't get much help. And I've said repeatedly, and I mean no disrespect by this, but it just kind of is what it is. Solon Page and Aaron Beasley should not be counted on to play significant snaps at a position on defense. You just really shouldn't, to be completely honest. But it is what it is, and you're going to have to count on both of those guys again this year. Maybe you'll have some help. Maybe Juwan Mitchell will be back into the fold. Maybe Elijah Herring will be back in the fold, or will be in the fold there as a true freshman to kind of help out a little bit. But you will have to rely on Aaron Beasley and Solon Page to a certain extent again this year. And so it's good that they got pressed into action and got a whole lot of experience last year. However, the experience was not great really for Aaron Beasley. I mean, all experience is good experience. I recognize that. But ultimately, you look at the numbers and it just it wasn't great. And I'll tell you why. If I can find Aaron Beasley here we go. In 2021, Aaron Beasley played in 13 games. He totaled 84 tackles, had 7.5 TFLs, had 1.5 sack. Numbers aren't horrible. He had 2 fumble recoveries. In fact, I made the comment midway through the season that Aaron Beasley's really stepped up his game and looking like a linebacker, and then he kind of ran out of gas. Very much, when you look at Aaron Beasley, it's kind of a symbolic of the entire defense for Tennessee in year one. Just no depth, lacking talent in some areas. Gave it a really good run. Did a lot of good things on the season. Not all of it was bad. I mean, Tennessee did a lot of good things on the season, but ultimately it kind of just was what it was by the end of the year. The stats weren't horrible, but again, when you look at Pro Football Focus, Aaron Beasley's grade for the entirety of the 2021 campaign was at 48.6. That is well below the replaceable mark in terms of the grading scale. In fact, Aaron Beasley, in terms of defensive ranks, he is 3rd from the bottom. The only two that are behind him, Velus Jones Jr., probably on some coverage units or on an interception, that counts the defensive rep, and Deshaun Rucker, who totaled only 38 snaps on the season. So got to see a little bit of action there, especially later in the season, but ultimately was more of a reserve the entire year. Aaron Beasley's grade was not good. The guy right above him, we'll talk about it, got 2 spots above him. Solon Page wasn't much better, but the guy right above him, Jalen McCullum. We'll get to that here next week. But Aaron Beasley, 48.6 overall on the season, just not good. 56.5 in terms of rush defense. You have Aaron Beasley at 46.6 in terms of tackling. Pressure grade was 60.0, and then coverage skills 35.4, which is just unacceptable. You look at his game-by-game performance, his best game of the season, Aaron Beasley at linebacker for Tennessee, was against Vanderbilt, where he graded out at 63.4%, a really solid grade. He finished with 8 total tackles. He graded out at 63.7% against Ole Miss with 4 total tackles. 63.9% against South Carolina, you had 8 total tackles. He actually graded out at 72.3% against Missouri, where he had 8 total tackles. So again, at linebacker, you can have a really bad game and still finish with, close to 10 tackles. That's just kind of the nature of the position. You're there to, make tackles. But just really, really not good games. He graded out at 30% per Pro Football Focus at Alabama, 40% at Kentucky. Some other really, really low marks on the season. 47.7% against Georgia, 60.8% against South Alabama, 47.5% against Purdue in the Music City Bowl. Just not good enough to be playing at the SEC level. So again, I know it sounds like I'm coming down on him. I'm trying not to. Just point of the matter was in 2021, it was not good enough. So, but I will continue to say Tennessee will have to continue to rely on Aaron Beasley and Solon Page in 2022. You're just going to have to. That's even if Juwan Mitchell is your starter. That's even if Elijah Herring can come on and give you some snaps and give you some work on the inside at linebacker as a true freshman. You need multiple guys to play this spot. And for the fact and really they did as well as they possibly could. Jeremy Banks, Aaron Beasley, and Solon Page did, because that is the only three who played pretty much the entire year. They played a whole lot of snaps. So I commend them and applaud them. I applaud them for that. I truly, truly do. You hope that the experience can make Aaron Beasley a better football player moving forward. Looks like he's weighing about 225 pounds. We'll see. I bet he's about 220 pounds. He's undersized to play linebacker in the SEC, certainly in the middle. But at points and times last year, he looked improved, but I just think he ran out of gas by the end of the season. So here's to seeing that position at linebacker, aside from Jeremy Banks, take a major step up, because, hey, if it does, then I think Tennessee's overall defense will take a big step up as well. That's your starter spotlight here for Friday. Linebacker Aaron Beasley. That's going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. We spoke on Tennessee's new athlete commit for the class of 2023. We heard from Phil Steele, a lot of good things he had to say about the University of Tennessee, and an interview he did with Josh and Swain on 99.1 The Sports Animal. And we had our starter spotlight closing out the linebacker group with veteran senior Aaron Beasley. Guys, thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen. Hey, make Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy, your taking a trip around the SEC in 30 every single day. Locked On SEC, your second listen, right behind Locked On Vols, which is your first listen each and every day. Guys, thank you so much. Really, really do appreciate it. Let's do it again on Monday, and have a safe and enjoyable weekend, everybody.